What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another Imperial Format video, and in this video I'm going to be covering a deck that I think is really neat, and that's Relinquished. But before we dive into the deck, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. We're at around 575 subscribers the last I checked, which means we're only 25 away from reaching 600. So I'd really like to reach that goal by the end of April, so if you're not already subscribed, please do so. In addition, if you want to play any of the formats that I feature in these videos for yourself, we have a Discord server, link will be in the description down below, but it's a great place to find games in these underexplored and obscure formats. And lastly, if you enjoy the video, as always, please do leave a like down below, it really helps out the channel a lot. But with all that out of the way, let's talk about Relinquished. So Relinquished was a deck that was pretty jank back in Treasure format, even though it was like a tier 2 sort of deck, I'd say. And I'd say it's probably around the same power level in Imperial, but there are some notable improvements to the deck. Things like Call of the Haunted and Premature Burial being able to bring back your Relinquished can be very strong. It's sort of recycling this ritual monster to take things like your opponent's Jinzos, and being able to suck up a Jinzo with Relinquished is incredibly powerful in this format, given that one of the most powerful plays that people can do is to reborn a Jinzo, but if it's sucked up by Relinquished, then it's not in the graveyard yet. Now, of course, the new format didn't exclusively benefit this deck. There is more spell and trap removal, and things like Imperial Order can make it hard for the deck to pull off its main combos. But I do think that overall, this deck is still probably around tier 2, just like it was in Treasure. So let's dive in to the card-by-card breakdown here. We've got 2 copies of Relinquished. You could potentially play 3 of this if you want to go all in on it. But I didn't really want to brick as much, so I figured that 2 of these and then 2 of the ritual spell, Black Illusion Ritual, was enough. We're also playing 2 Senju of the Thousand Hand to search out our 2 Relinquished, and 2 Sonic Bird to search out our Black Illusion Rituals. Now, you can wind up in situations where you hard draw a Relinquished or a Black Illusion Ritual, making these monsters a bit less good, but I still think that playing the 2-to-2 ratio, having these recruiters equal the amount of cards that they can search is still pretty good enough. Now, the major flaw with Sonic Bird and Senju is that they can be crashed into by recruiters, but I think that these cards are good enough at deck thinning to make them worth playing, and I do think that this deck is very good late game because of this, because there are so many more powerful cards in Imperial format that you've kind of deck thinned down to. We're also playing 2 Sangan and 1 Witch, the 3 recruiters in this format. These can be used to fetch Senju and Sonic Bird. They can also be used to fetch things like Mechanical Chaser if you're talking about Witch, and Jinzo as well. Now, we are playing a copy of Jinzo just because this card is so format warping, and also it can be very nice if you're able to put this online to stop any Imperial Orders and then go for your Black Illusion Ritual to bring out Relinquished. So I do think that's pretty good in this deck. It is a little bit more bricky in this deck than in some other decks because you're generally not trying to revive the Jinzo, you're generally trying to revive your Relinquished. So it's a bit less good, I think, but it still is very good in this deck, just like in all the others. The Mechanical Chasers are there to keep up aggressive pressure, which I do think is pretty valuable as, at the end of the day, this deck does win through damage. We've also got 3 Mystic Tomato to fetch out our Sangans and Witches. Those are really the only targets for them besides themselves, but that honestly is just enough. And lastly, we're playing 3 Magician of Faith. These can be used to get back any of our powerful spells, but it can also be used to recycle something like Black Illusion Ritual if your opponent has used like an Imperial Order to stop the first time you activate it. So I do think Magician of Faith is a very good card to include in this deck. For the spells, we've got 2 Black Illusion Ritual, as I mentioned before. We've got a Change of Heart because it's incredibly strong. Also being able to Change of Heart and then Black Illusion Ritual away whatever you change of heart is very powerful. We've also got the 3 hand rips, Confiscation, Liquid Duo, and Forceful Sentry. These are all very powerful. We've got Dark Hole and Raigeki to clear away our opponent's boards. We've got Monster Reborn to revive any of our powerful monsters, but especially Relinquished, because being able to bring that back to act as more removal is very strong. We've got 3 Mystical Space Typhoon. Now, in this deck, this kind of does double duty. It's great at sniping things like Imperial Order, Call of the Haunted, Snatch Steal, Premature Burial, all of those cards that you don't want your opponent to be activating, but also it can be used to chain to Imperial Order to make sure your Black Illusion Rituals go through, and it can be used on whatever monster you have equipped to Relinquished to sort of be able to suck up another monster with it. So this card is very versatile in the deck, and that's why we're playing 3 of it. We've also got a Pot of Greed just to draw deeper into our deck. We've got Premature Burial, as I mentioned before, to revive Relinquished. Snatch Steal to take our opponent's monsters. Just like with Change of Heart, this can combo very well with Black Illusion Ritual. And that's it for these spells. Moving on to the traps, we've got Call of the Haunted to bring back Relinquished, as I mentioned. We've got Imperial Order. Now, while this is up, you can't actually activate Black Illusion Ritual, but you can always just, stop paying for it the turn that you actually want to make that play. So I do think that this is worth including anyways. We've also got a Mirror Force. This is a great defensive card. And we've also got Solemn Judgment, as this deck can be a little bit fragile. Now, a lot of decks don't seem to be playing Solemn Judgment in this format, and I see why. When Jinzo hits the field, this card becomes a lot less good. And also, if you're forced to use it on a Jinzo, because there are so many ways to revive that Jinzo, you've kind of paid half your life points for not much reward. But I do think in this deck, specifically, it is very good because it can protect your ways to remove Jinzo. So, I like this card, but I could definitely see people cutting it down in the future. For the side deck, we've got 3 Maneater Bug in case our opponent's playing a bit more of an aggressive strategy. We've got Cannon Soldier if we find ourselves wanting that extra bit of burn at the end. We've got 2 Noblemen of Crossout and a Ceasefire in case we're up against something like Empty Jar. We've got 3 Dust Tornado to add in case we're against a deck that uses a lot of back row like Burn. We've got Solemn Wishes as well for the Burn matchup, as this can be very annoying for Burn to deal with. And lastly, we've got 2 Waboku in case we're facing a more aggressive beatdown focused matchup. But that's going to do it for the card-by-card breakdown. I think this deck is really sick. It may not be tier 1, but I do think it's really cool to play. So let's see how it plays in some games. Okay, we've got a game against Soul 65. We're playing Relinquished, unclear what they're playing. But let's find out. We're going to go into the rock, paper, scissors, and we do unfortunately lose that. So we will be going second here. But let's hope it doesn't affect us too much. This is a pretty good opener. We've got the Black Illusion Ritual plus a Senju, so we can just get the combo online right away. So let's see what they do here. They're going to fire a Forceful Sentry, so now they know what we're on. And it's kind of tough. I'm not sure exactly what I'd take if I was them. Probably the Raigeki, but Mystic Tomato is also a very good option here. They are indeed going to take the Tomato, so that means that they can probably play around Raigeki quite a bit. And they're going to set 1 and pass back to us. We draw another Black Illusion Ritual, so now we've got our combo majorly online. We're going to summon out Senju, search out a Relinquished, and we'll attack into their set there. It's a Mystic Tomato, so they'll be able to get a search there. They're going to grab a Sangan. And main phase 2, if they had brought out another Tomato, we could have maybe Raigeki'd it, but we don't really want to Raigeki a Sangan, so we're just going to pass back to them. They've used up 1 hand rip already, so we're not too concerned about more hand rips. And even if they've got more hand rips, it's not the worst thing in the world. They'll take Raigeki, of course, but that isn't that good on this board right now. They're going to bring out a Mother Grizzly, so it seems like they're on a bit of like water jank, maybe like the deck that Yami Chaotico was playing in my last video. But either way, these 1400 elemental recruiters here will be able to crash into Senju, bring out another one, and attack in for 2400, which is a bit rough. And that is one of the major flaws with Senju and Sonic Bird. Your opponent can easily just crash into them and get some very good monsters off them. We draw a recruiter of our own, though, which is very nice. And since they've already used up 1 Mother Grizzly, I think we can actually win that crashing war if we do go for that. We could also just summon Senju to deck thin a little bit more, but since they can just crash into that next turn with a Mother Grizzly, I think it's better just to summon out Mystic Tomato and clear their board this way. We'll crash in, they will get a search here, and we will also get a search, so they're going to bring out that Mother Grizzly, we're going to bring out a Mystic Tomato, and we're going to attack in to their Mother Grizzly again. They are going to not use Mother Grizzly's effect, which might mean that they could be out of targets in their deck, so that's kind of interesting. But oftentimes these water decks are building towards something like Catapult Turtle, so if that's their only target, maybe they hard drew it. Or maybe they just don't want to bring it out on field to get destroyed by the Witch. Either way, we're going to attack into their Sangan, so they will get a search here. But honestly, I feel like we're in a pretty good position. They're going to search out a Morphing Jar, which could be pretty rough for us. If they set something, we might have to Raigeki that. Although we do have Black Illusion Ritual and Relinquished in hand to pull off the combo, so we could just suck it up with Relinquished instead. We're just going to pass back to us, and let's see what they do here. They're going to set one, set another, and pass back to us. We draw Magician of Faith, which is very nice. That can be used to get back the Black Illusion Ritual. And we're going to bring out another Senju. That's fine by them. So we'll search out another copy of Relinquished here. And we're going to try firing a Black Illusion Ritual, hoping that they don't have something like an Imperial Order. Unfortunately, they do indeed have an Imperial Order, and luckily, since ritual spells don't actually tribute for cost, we won't lose anything here except for the spell itself. But unfortunately, you know, their set monster will remain on field. So we might, unfortunately, just lose our 2 copies of Relinquished here, which would really, really stink. It would kind of deprive us of our central, you know, sort of strategy. But luckily, if that is a Morphing Jar, we can cause them to discard 4 cards, so that would be pretty nice. We're going to set the Black Illusion Ritual and the Raigeki and try attacking into their set. Luckily for us, it is not a Morphing Jar, it's a Sangan to get another search here. They're going to search out a Tomato, which does match up pretty well against our Senju. But honestly, we're just happy that we were able to keep the Relinquished in hand. We're going to pass back to them and see if they pay for the Imperial Order. They are indeed just going to let that go. And they're going to fire a Last Will, so this is a little bit worrying. We are at 5,600, so they could potentially kill us. I can't quite see a way how, but, you know, there are enough broken cards in this format that they could potentially do it. They're going to summon out a Tomato, and they're going to attack into Senju, so that will crash there. They'll be able to get a search off the Tomato and a monster off of Last Will. So they're going to bring out a Cannon Soldier and a Witch. They're going to attack in to the Witch, so we will get a search off this. We're going to grab a Mechanical Chaser. I think that's a pretty good grab off of this. Main 2, they're just going to tribute off the Cannon Soldier, so we don't have a very good Relinquished target there. And they're going to fire a Pot of Greed. That's pretty good for them. They're going to go up to 5 cards, and they're going to pass to us. Mystical Space Typhoon is a decent draw. We're going to fire the Black Illusion Ritual now that we do have the Relinquished. And since we've only got 1 Black Illusion Ritual that we can use, unless we use Magician of Faith to get back the other one, we are just going to tribute off the other copy of Relinquished in our hand. So we'll be able to bring out this copy of Relinquished, suck up their Witch, summon out a Mechanical Chaser, and attack in for 2950. Now this isn't ideal, of course, because if they attack into Relinquished, they can clear the Witch, get a search there. But we're going to have to get through the Witch either way. So, you know, we might as well suck it up and deal damage. Main 2, we are going to set a Mystical Space Typhoon and pass back to them. The reason we do this is we are playing a little bit into Heavy Storm, but we're kind of playing into Heavy Storm anyways with our set there. And we really do want the Mystical Space Typhoon on field, potentially stop something like a Premature Burial or a Snatch Steal. So I do think it's good to set there. If they've got heavy, they've got heavy, but I'm feeling good otherwise. We can also use Magician of Faith to get back Raigeki if they do have heavy, so we're not dead in the water there. They're going to fire a Fisher, which will clear our Relinquished, and they will get a search off the Witch there. They're going to grab a Magician of Faith, which is a bit worrying, as they do have some very powerful spells that they can get back here. They're going to set one, set another, and pass back to us. We draw another Mechanical Chaser, and actually I think this could potentially be the end of the game. So we are going to think about this a bit, and we're actually going to fire the Raigeki first. And the reason we do this is because we want to clear their back row in order to make sure we have a clear path to attack in. But if their back row is something like a Mystical Space Typhoon, and we try Mystical Space Typhooning it, then they can chain it and get rid of our Raigeki before we can use it here. So we're just firing the Raigeki first, and we know that they don't have Imperial Order, so it's unlikely that this is going to be stopped here. So we're going to fire that Raigeki and get rid of the Morphing Jar. We're then going to try and clear their back row. Now, if it's a Woboku, then we get majorly punished here. But Woboku's sort of fallen out of favor in this format, so I feel pretty good about taking this risk. Luckily, it's not Woboku, it's just a bluff, so we'll be able to summon out Mechanical Chaser and attack in for 3,700, which will be lethal. So, you know, this isn't the most meta deck in the world. Trust me, I do have another game against Soul where they are playing something a lot more meta. But I do think that this game does show some of these strengths of Relinquished. It also does show some of its flaws, you know. The fact that Mystic Tomato can so easily crash into things like Senju and Sonic Bird is pretty rough. But the fact that Senju and Sonic Bird make the deck so consistent is a major plus. And even if your opponent does stop one of your Black Illusion rituals with an Imperial Order, you can often have the other online as well. So that's game one. I think the only real change we make in siding is we take out the hand rips. This deck isn't playing Painful Choice. I could definitely see builds where you do play Painful Choice, but the reason I don't choose to play it is that so much of the combo needs to be in your hand first, because you can't revive Relinquished that haven't been properly summoned. So if you do try Painfuling to get your combo online, it can really backfire for you. So I don't think Painful is quite as good in this deck as it is in other decks. Again, I could definitely see people playing Painful if they want. It is a very powerful card. It just didn't really fit into the deck for me. So we're not playing Painful, so we're just going to swap out the hand rips, I believe, for 3 Man-Eater Bugs, as that can sort of pop things like Jinzo. It's just more removal, which is nice. And this is a killer opener hand. Let's hope they don't have a hand rip here to dismantle it, and it looks like they don't, so we feel very good about that. And that Magician of Faith is just the cherry on top. We're going to fire a Pot of Greed here, drawing 2, and those are pretty good draws. We could potentially set the Magician of Faith just to get back that Pot of Greed, but if they've got something like a Man-Eater Bug set, then we get majorly punished for that. So we're just going to try and get a little bit aggressive. We're going to bring out Mechanical Chaser and attack into their set, see what it is. It looks like it's a Mother Grizzly, so they'll be able to bring out another Mother Grizzly potentially. It looks like instead they're just going to bring out a Catapult Turtle, and honestly that works out pretty well for us because we do have a way to deal with it. Maybe this is a bit of a greedy play, but I like doing it, because we do know that they're on some sort of last will shenanigans, so we don't want them doing anything too crazy here. We're going to Snatch Steal that Catapult Turtle and use its effect to tribute it off to deal 500. We do have the Magician of Faith to recycle the Snatch Steal later if we do want it, so I feel pretty fine about this. We're going to set a Solemn Judgment and a Mirror Force pass back to them. If they try heavying here, we could potentially Solemn. Solemn's a lot riskier in this format given that there's so many explosive ways to kill you, so it's not ideal. But they do have one set of their own that could, of course, be a heavy, but I feel fine about doing this. They're going to set another pass back to us. We draw Senju, which is pretty nice. We're going to summon out that Senju just to deck thin a little bit. We already have a Relinquished in hand, but it would be nice to not draw the other one here. So we're going to go to Battle Phase, attack into their set with the Senju first. This means that if it's something like a Mystic Tomato or a Mother Grizzly, we can get over it with the Mechanical Chaser afterwards. And luckily for us, it is a Mother Grizzly. They're going to search out another Mother Grizzly here, and we are going to attack in with Mechanical Chaser. So they'll take 450. Looks like they don't have any other targets for it, so we feel very good about this. And then we're just going to pass back to them. I feel pretty comfortable with this board here. They're going to fire a Last Will, which is a bit worrying. We could potentially Solemn that, but we don't really feel the big need to, as we are at 8,000 life points, and it's unlikely that they can kill us this turn. They're going to bring out a Mystic Tomato, and we could Solemn that, because a funny thing that Solemn does is it doesn't actually send from field to graveyard, so this would kind of blank their Last Will, and then we can get aggressive next turn as well. But if they've got some form of graveyard revival, then we get majorly punished by that, so I feel like we can wait on the Solemn for a bit longer. They're going to attack in to our Senju with the Mystic Tomato. They'll get a search here, and Last Will enable them to get out another monster from deck as well. So they'll get out a Witch and a Sangan. Main 2, they're just going to fire a Fissure on our Mechanical Chaser and pass back to us. And, you know, we don't have the best options here. Either way, they're going to get searches off that Sangan and Witch, which is a bit unfortunate. But we can bring out a Witch of our own and attack into the Sangan just to clear monsters off their field. And then if they do clear the Witch, we can summon out a Sonic Bird, which can get us a Black Illusion Ritual, and then we'll have our combo online. So, we'll clear their Sangan. They're going to search out a Morphing Jar, which is a little bit worrying. And we're going to set a Mystical Space Typhoon. Again, this is playing a bit into heavy, but we do have a Solemn to stop a heavy if they've got it. Passing back to them, they're going to fire another Last Will. And again, we could Solemn this, but I don't really feel the need to. We're at 8,000 life points. A bit unlikely that they can kill us here. So they're just going to crash their Witch into ours. So that we'll clear our Witch, and we'll search out a Sonic Bird here. And they're going to both get a search with the Witch and a summon off of Last Will. So they're going to summon out a Sangan to attack in for 1,000. And they're going to search out a Goblin Attack Force with the Witch. Seems like they're on that. That makes sense, as Goblin Attack Force tributed off with a Catapult Turtle is 1150 damage. So it's a way to get even more damage in. So I see why they're playing it. They're going to set one and pass back to us. And given that we know that they have Morphing Jar in hand, we want to prevent them from using that if possible. We're going to summon out a Sonic Bird here, search out a Black Illusion Ritual, and we're going to fire a Black Illusion Ritual and think about what exactly to tribute here. We kind of want to keep our Sonic Bird on field to attack into their Sangan there, but at the same time we also want Magician of Faith for later because we do have some very powerful spells in Grave. So honestly, we might just tribute off a Relinquished here, and I think that might be what we do. Yeah, we do indeed do that. We're going to summon it in defense because we're sucking up their set card, so no need to potentially take more damage, even though that would actually get reflected at them as well. This also plays around Mirror Force a bit if they've got it. So we're going to attack into their Sangan. They're going to take 400 from that, and they'll get a search here. They're going to search out a Mystic Tomato, and main two, we're just going to set another Solemn. Having two Solemns at this point in the game when we've got a pretty commanding board position is very nice. They're going to fire a Pot of Greed, and we could potentially Solemn this, but I feel like we're going to save our Solemn for more important plays. So they will get to draw two, unfortunately, and they're going to summon a Mystic Tomato, and that's fine by us. They're going to attack in to our Sonic Bird, and we could potentially, honestly, just Mirror Force this. It's only one monster, but, you know, letting them get the value off the tomato is a bit rough. So I think we're going to think about this, and we are going to fire the Mirror Force. They've got a Solemn in response. This will drop them down to 3350. So we could actually fire one of our Solemns in response to their Solemn. But honestly, even if they get a search off the tomato, it's not the worst because they'll be at very low life points, and we can just attack our Relinquished into whatever they bring out next turn. They'll take damage, and then we can suck it up. So I feel like, honestly, we can just let this go through, save the Solemns for more important plays. So we'll let that go through, and they'll bring out a Cannon Soldier here. They're going to attack into the Relinquished, which is a little bit worrying, and it does seem like they're going to tribute off the Cannon Soldier here. They're going to set one pass back to us, and now our Relinquished is in a very vulnerable spot. Nothing we can really do about that. I think the best thing we can do is just set a monster to give them sort of a dilemma. Like, do they clear the Relinquished, or do they clear whatever set monster we've got? So we are going to indeed set a monster. We're going to set the Magician of Faith. If they've got like a Change of Heart to take it, we've got the Solemn Judgment. And Magician of Faith can let us get back the Pot of Greed, which I think is very good. So we're going to pass back to them. They're going to bring out a Goblin Attack Force, and that is A-okay in our book. They're going to set one, probably in just playing around Morphing Jar, and they will attack into our set here. So we're going to grab back a Pot of Greed, and this is actually a very worrying situation for them because we can always suck up their Goblin Attack Force with our Relinquished. So they're going to go to main 2, pay 1,000 off the confiscation here to snipe a card from our hand, and honestly we could actually let this go through as whatever they take here we feel pretty good about, but I figure because like we just want to cement the game as our victory here, we are just going to fire the Solemn Judgment here. Like, we've got another Solemn and a Mystical Space Typhoon for whatever they've got, so if they set another card here, we can Mystical Space Typhoon it in the end phase, and then we've got a Solemn for whatever else they have. If they set 2 cards here, then it's a bit iffy, but they can't set 3 because we do know that they've got a Morphing Jar in hand. So I feel okay about Solemning this, although this may be a bit greedy. So they're going to pass back to us, and I think this is a majorly greedy play. I don't think I should have done this, because if they do have like a Call of the Haunted, then they can get a search off that. If they're playing Karibo, then that comes back to bite us. So I think I shouldn't have done this. I just did it. It's a greedy play, but luckily it pays off. So this is just the end of the game. We're going to suck up their Goblin Attack Force. Might as well Pot of Greed. Not really much that we're trying to draw into here, but just in case. And we're going to bring out a Sangan and attack in for over lethal here. And it looks like they had all monsters in hand and none that could really do anything against this board. So that will be the end of the game. Now, again, this was against a much more jank deck, but I do think it shows some of the major strength that Relinquished can have. Relinquished itself is such an annoying monster to deal with, and being able to suck up flip monsters as well as powerful opponents' monsters is very, very nice. I didn't get to show it sucking up a Jinzo here, but if you imagined, instead of Golem Attack Force, Jinzo, you can see how devastatingly powerful that could be. But I don't like just showing off how these decks can do against some less meta decks. I like also showing how they do against the generic good stuff decks. So let's dive into a game against one of those. Okay, we've got a game against Soul 65 again. This time, they're on good stuff. So let's see how the Relinquished deck can stack up. We will win the Rock, Paper, Scissors this time, which is very nice. We'll be able to go first here. And let's see how this goes. This is a pretty good opener. Sandgate can search out pretty much anything we'd want here, and we've got the call to recur the Relinquished if we ever get it online. So what we're going to do is we're just going to summon out Sandgate, set a Mystical Space Typhoon, pass back to them. If they use Spell and Trap removal on a Mystical Space Typhoon, we don't really care that much. And we're summoning the Sandgate just in case they're playing Nobleman in the main, which many good stuff decks are doing. They're going to think about what exactly to do here, and they're going to summon out a Sandgate. So they will set 3, actually, and just pass back to us. It looks like they didn't want to crash, which makes sense because if they do crash, then we sort of have the upper hand as we get to do our play before they can. Unfortunately for them, we did draw a Witch, so we can just summon that out and potentially just try and attack in here. So we're going to attack in. If they've got Mirror Force isn't the best here against these recruiters. And it looks like they know that if they do. So we are just going to be able to attack in for 1100 damage total. And then in main 2, we're just going to set a Solemn Judgment here. Pass back to them. We don't necessarily want to use Solemn this early, but it's unlikely that they're going to Heavy Storm this board, given that they've got 3 back row. And it's just good to have the option if we need it. They're going to set another pass back to us. We draw Monster Reborn, which is very nice. Another way to sort of recur Relinquished from grave. So we're going to summon out a Mechanical Chaser here. And then we're just going to set the remaining cards in our hand just in case they've got a Morphing Jar here. And we're going to attack in. They're going to Mirror Force this. We will get 2 searches here, but they're getting rid of 3 monsters. So I think this makes sense as a good trade for them. We're going to grab a Sandgate and a Sonic Bird. And we're just going to pass back to them. We could have grabbed a Senju and a Sonic Bird, but I like having the Sandgate as a defensive option, potentially replace itself in case things go south. Now, they're going to think about exactly what to do here. They're going to flip up a Witch, and they're going to attack in for 1100. We'll take that. Main 2, they're going to set 1, pass back to us. We just hard draw Relinquished. We're just that good. We're going to summon out this Sonic Bird here. We will get a search off that for the Black Illusion Ritual. And we are going to think about whether we want to actually bring out Relinquished now. We could do it sucking up their set monster, or potentially even sucking up their Witch just to attack in for more damage here, potentially. But I think it's probably best to wait, especially since they can search out a Jinzo with the Witch. So we're going to attack in to that Witch there, deal 300. They will get a search off of this, indeed, and they're going to search out a Jinzo. So we're just going to pass back to them because if they do bring out Jinzo, we can just suck it up with Relinquished, which is a pretty good place to be. They are indeed going to tribute off the wall for a Jinzo there and attack in to our Sonic Bird. We'll take 1,000 damage here. Main 2, they're just going to set another pass back to us, but we feel very good about this. We're going to summon out a Sandgate and then Black Illusion Ritual, and the reason we do this is because Sandgate won't search if it's sent from hand to graveyard. It must be on field. So we want that search, and we're going to bring out this Relinquished. We could have potentially just, tributed off a Magician of Faith in our hand, and then use the Sandgate as an aggressive pressure, but I feel like we want to save the Magicians of Faith for our powerful spells later on. We don't have any in grave right now, but we do have a Monster Reborn for later, so I feel like it's good to recycle that. In the meantime, we are just going to suck up their Jinzo and attack in for 2,400 here. We know they don't have a Mirror Force left, so we can feel fine doing this. And then this is a bit of a tough one for them to deal with. They're going to bring out a Goblin Attack Force, which is fine by us, and then they will Fisher away Relinquished. Well, that will deal with Relinquished, unfortunately. And if we had made this sort of Sandgate Relinquished play, then we wouldn't be in this situation. But, we've got plenty of Graveyard Recursion to bring back that Relinquished, so we feel fine about this. we're going to draw for turn. I think we can potentially just wrap it up here. We're going to think about exactly how to do that, but if we do just reborn their Jinzo, shut them off from traps, and then like Call of the Haunted back or Relinquish, then I think we do just win the game. It looks like, oh, we need to Call of the Haunted the Relinquish first because we can't activate Call of the Haunted when Jinzo's on field. This would be really sad if they've got Spell and Trap and able to deal with the Call of the Haunted, but it looks like that's fine. So we're going to bring back that Relinquished, and we're going to suck up the Goblin Attack Force before reborning the Jinzo. And you may wonder why that is, and the reason for that is in this format there's no real effect negation. So, you know, there's no way for our opponent to stop us from doing this. And we want to play around in case we like reborn their Jinzo and they potentially like fire a Dust Tornado to get rid of the call before Jinzo hits the field. Then they'd still have the Goblin Attack Force on their side of the field. This way, if they do that, then this will at least get rid of their Goblin Attack Force as well. But we're going to fire the Reborn here, targeting Jinzo. They fired Imperial Order. We do have the Mystical Space Typhoon for that, and if they've got like a Solemn Judgment or something, we've got a Solemn Judgment for that. So I think that probably should just be the end of the game here. This is 4,700 damage on board, and they can't activate traps. So I feel like this should be it. We're going to attack in for everything. And it seems like that is indeed the end of the game here. Yep, and it will be. So I think that game showed how strong Relinquish can be at sucking up Jinzo. Jinzo is a meta-warping card in this format, and a lot of jank decks do struggle with dealing with it. Relinquish doesn't really have that problem as much, as if you can get a Relinquish on field while the opponent's got Jinzo up, then you've got a pretty good beat stick on your hands. So I do like that for the deck. In siding here, we side out of the hand rips just like we did last time, because we are likely going second, and this deck isn't playing Painful Choice. So we probably side into the Manure Bugs. I think we do actually side into the Manure Bugs here instead of the hand rips. And this is a great opening hand. We can get the combo online very early. They're just going to set 2, pass back to us. And we're going to think about this, and we're just going to go for the combo right away. In case that's something like a Mystic Tomato, we don't necessarily want them getting that search off that. So we're just going to try and go for the Relinquished combo right away. We do fire Relinquished and bring it out. Unfortunately, you know, our opponent does have a response here, so we sort of jumped the gun in summoning out Relinquished, but it's just a little bit more information that they've got. They learned that we've got a Sonic Bird in hand, unfortunately, but other than that, they didn't really learn anything else. It's unfortunate, though, because now we don't get to sort of do our Relinquished play here, which is very sad. But we'll attack into their Mystic Tomato, and that is a bit unfortunate because if they get another Mystic Tomato here, they can crash into our Senju, and that would be pretty bad. We're just going to pass back to them. We could have set the Reborn as a bluff, but again, there is a lot of spell and trap removal in this format, so we didn't really want to risk it, and I don't think we're at risk of dying out of nowhere here. They are indeed going to pay 700 for the Imperial Order to keep it on field, which is very annoying, because if they didn't do that, we could have summoned out Sonic Bird, got another Black Legion Ritual, and gone for the Relinquished play yet again. But unfortunately, they're thinking ahead. And they will bring out a Sangan to attack in for 1,000 here. Quite unfortunate, they're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw another Senju, so we could summon that to search out the additional copy of Relinquished. But just to have the combo online in case we need it, we're going to bring out a Sonic Bird instead. We won't be able to activate the combo this turn, but just having it is pretty nice. We're going to attack into their Sangan, so they will get a search here off that. They can probably search like a Mystic Tomato. That would be pretty good. And it would deal with our Sonic Bird very well. Kind of unfortunate, but we're still at pretty high life points, so we're not too concerned about that. They're going to pay another 700 to keep the Imperial Order on field. And they're going to bring out the Mystic Tomato, crash into our Sonic Bird, and get a search off that. So they are going to bring out a Witch of the Black Forest, and they'll be able to attack in for 1,100. Now, that's a bit worrying, but the nice thing is that they've gone through all their Mystic Tomatoes, which is pretty good. So now we can feel fine about summoning out a Senju and just sort of attacking in that way, because they can't do the whole crashing with Mystic Tomato unless they've got something like Call of the Haunted If they got something like Premature Burial or Monster Reborn, then they'll have to let their Imperial Order die to do that, and we're fine with that because then we can pull off a Relinquished combo. So we're going to search out another Relinquished with the Senju here and attack over their Witch of the Black Forest. They can search out something like a Mechanical Chaser here to hit over the Senju instead. It looks like they're just going to search out a Sangan here. And then in main 2, we're going to set a Mystical Space Typhoon, pass back to them. They are indeed going to let the Imperial Order die this time, and they're going to fire a Mystical Space Typhoon on our set. We'll chain our Mystical Space Typhoon, but unfortunately it's a Call of the Haunted here, so they'll be able to bring back this Witch of the Black Forest with it. That Witch of the Black Forest will die when the Call of the Haunted gets popped, but they will get to search off that. So a little bit unfortunate, they will get value off that, but at least we got some value off of our Mystical Space Typhoon. They're going to search out a Mechanical Chaser, summon that out, attack over our Senju, which is a bit unfortunate. But honestly, we're not too upset because now we can relinquish their Mechanical Chaser. And actually, that Premature Burial might make it the end of the game here. We need to do some math, but I think we actually have this one in the bag. We're going to activate a Black Illusion Ritual, tributing off our Relinquished for another Relinquished here. And we're going to suck up their Mechanical Chaser there. We've got 1850 on board now. We'll summon out another Mechanical Chaser for another 1850, bringing us up to 3700. We'll fire a Premature Burial, bringing back a Senju of the Thousand Hands. So this will bring us up to 5100. And then a Reborn will be the end of the game, unless they've got Karibo here. Looks like they don't, so that will just be the end of the game. I think this does show that just like a lot of decks in this format, the good stuff that Relinquished is playing can enable it to win the game out of nowhere, and Relinquished itself can aid in that very well. In both of these games against this good stuff deck, and, you know, to be fair, this is like a more beatdown focused version of the good stuff deck, so, you know, maybe not as meta as it could be, but in both of these games, we sucked up a very powerful monster with Relinquished and pushed for the final bit of damage that we needed. And I think that does show how powerful Relinquished can be at assembling OTKs. So I think this deck has gained a lot of new cool tools in this format, and I really do think it's a very cool deck. It does require a lot of stuff to go right for it, though, and its central monster is a bit fragile, which I do think is a bit of a problem for it. But I do think this is a solid, like, tier 2 competitor, and I hope to see more people experimenting with it because it's one of my favorite decks in the format, and I think it's a lot of fun. But let me know what you all think of this deck down in the comments below. I look forward to our conversation as always, and until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.